You know, I am no stranger to injury and pain. A combination of thinking I'm still 18 and never actually having any coordination means I've hurt myself more regularly than most. I have been known to fall unwell at times. So far nothing too bad, but being ill is never a fun experience. I'm a typical man when I'm unwell. First, I deny that I'm unwell at all. And then when it's too obvious to deny, I complain bitterly, making everyone else around me miserable. After all, misery does love company. I'm not likely to be found at the doctor's unless someone in my family bullies me to go. When I do finally go to the doctor, I'm told what my issue is, I tend to be very sceptical. I will try and figure out other remedies in order to get better my own way. The Bible compares the problem of humanity to a disease. There was a disease in Bible times known as leprosy, which is not necessarily what we call leprosy today, but leprosy is used as a picture of sin in the Bible. Sin is the root cause of all that is wrong in the world and all that is wrong in ourselves. Like the cold virus is the source of the sore head, congestion, aching body and runny nose. Symptoms might be able to be dealt with, but we're still ill until the underlying cause is dealt with. Sin is a breakdown in our relationship with God, the source of all that is good in the universe. This breakdown was not caused by God, but rather by us. Both in the first instance, by Adam deliberately breaking God's law, and by us as individuals, following in Adam's rebellious footsteps. Each and every one of us can look back into our lives and find a moment that we have done something that we knew to be wrong. We tend to, like me when I'm ill, pretend that we're not ill. We hide the issue or justify ourselves and get all defensive. I would blame my sluggish brain on the lack of sleep and the runny nose on the weather outside. It's the same in the spiritual realm. We talk of upbringing and environment and being true to ourselves. My denial of the cold virus does not make it any less true. I might claim that my wrongs were justifiable, but that does not make them right. There's a standard that we're all called to keep. And when we have all failed to keep it, it is the foremost unifying factor in our humanity. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But I hear you cry, my wrongdoing is different from that other person's wrongdoing. They may have committed murder, and you see, I've only lied. But these are simply different symptoms of the same disease, the disease of sin. If you had stage 1 cancer and you knew that someone else had stage 4 cancer, you wouldn't say, oh, I don't need to deal with my stage 1 cancers because it's only stage 1. Or would you be over at your doctor talking over treatment options? Perhaps you're like me. When you're ill, you make everyone else's life a misery around about you. Or perhaps you're related to somebody like me who complains about how terrible it is to be ill, all the while ignoring the exhausted look in the other person's eyes. The same virus affecting both. In the spiritual world, we see the same behaviour. People complaining, perhaps justifiably so, at how difficult living in this world is. It's so marked by sin. They talk about the hatred shown by others, the greed, the oppression and the oppressed. They talk about selfishness and betrayal. They complain about disobedient children and grumpy old men. They don't seem to see that these are just symptoms of the underlying problem, sin. So if we all have this problem, this disease, is there treatment for it? Is there a cure? Yes, there is. There is only one cure. That's it, just the one cure. And that is to go to Jesus as the only one who has, by his own death, dealt with the problem. Jesus died so that we might be healed. Isaiah told us that Jesus would do this hundreds of years before he was born, when he said, "Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was cursed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed." It was by the wounds that were laid on Jesus that we can be healed from the disease of sin. It was what Jesus endured for us during his crucifixion just outside Jerusalem that enabled us to have the problem of sin dealt with. All we have to do in order to have the healing that is on offer is to ask God to forgive us based on what Jesus did on our behalf. If we come to God through Jesus in simple trusting faith, we can have the spiritual healing that we so desperately need. Ah, I hear you cry, that's too simple. There must be more to it than that. I have heard that you have to join a church. I have been told that you must go to the priest and make regular confessions to him. My friend said you have to do more good than bad in the course of your life. You must try better. You must heal yourself before going to God for approval. Snake oil. All of it. Snake oil is a term given to potions and elixirs that claim to have health benefits, but probably actually make you worse rather than better. Any peddler of such concoctions were called snake oil salesmen. And anyone, good intentioned or not, who tells you that anything other than simple, trusting faith in Jesus is required to deal with the problem of sin is nothing more than a snake oil salesman. The Bible is clear. You cannot add to, contribute to, assist in, or part fill the cup of your healing or salvation. In fact, the Apostle Paul, who wrote much of the New Testament, made this point in Romans chapter 11 verse 6, that if you try to add to your own works to the grace that God has provided through Jesus, you make the work of Jesus null and void. Like some medicines which cannot be taken together, or one cancels out the other. If you try to add anything that could be considered a work for your salvation, you're saying to God that you do not want Jesus. You cannot have both. It's one or the other. But, I hear you cry, I'd much rather the remedy that makes me feel better about myself. I don't want to feel weak and helpless. Surely it would do me much better if I felt like I was doing something to heal myself. Well, I'm afraid that's not how it works. That is a different remedy. One that is altogether incompatible with the one that God offers. Does this mean that we should not do good things? Of course we should do good things. But we don't do them because we think they're going to get us closer to God in terms of salvation. We should do them because they're the right thing to do. If we think that they're going to deal with our sin, these good things, then we're doing the wrong thing. Motive matters in these things. And God knows our motives. Then you tell me of a remedy that you have heard that is totally different. Perhaps this remedy is called Buddhism. It says that you must reach a level of enlightenment by simply ignoring the problems. If you can tell yourself that the pain and turmoil is not real, then it will truly become unreal. You try telling that to my cold. That if I believe the snot that's coming out my nose and running down my chin is not real, then I'll not need a hanky. It's foolishness in the greatest degree. The bury your head in the sand solution, pretending a problem does not exist, doesn't deal with the problem. Probably just makes the problem worse. Perhaps you like the cosmic karma of the Hindu teachings that say the reason you're suffering is because you were bad in a previous life. Not this life, a previous one. Well, that might explain the symptoms, but that does not alleviate them. It does nothing to deal with the root cause of the disease. Perhaps you think that if we just put in place enough treatments to deal with the symptoms, then the root cause would disappear. Perhaps you think that if we had the right educational system, the right political system, the right societal structure, then mankind would pull itself up by its bootstraps and eventually reach utopia. Again, I'm sorry to say that just like a disease, that if untreated will kill you, no matter how many symptoms we mask, if we do not deal with the root cause, if we do not deal with sin, we have no hope in the future. We cannot expect politicians, educators, social reformers, revolutionaries or activists to help us out of our predicament. They, after all, have the same brokenness, the same disease, the same problem as the rest of us. Sin infects their lives the same as ours. There is only one cure that can be effective in dealing with the problem of sin. It is faith in Jesus and in Him alone. It is, of course, important to keep ourselves physically healthy. But more important by far, to deal with the disease of sin. So turn to Jesus today. Trust in Him and experience the spiritual healing that He can offer you. Thanks for watching. It'll be Nathan again next week, and remember that our carol service will be the week before Christmas, and we would love to see anybody that can make it in person. Not that I'm trying to bribe you, but food will be there, and plenty of food. All of it good. Very little healthy, obviously.